Assalamu alaikum. In this lecture, we will discuss short essays. We will discuss from planning in short essay to finally revising your short essay and everything that comes in the way. Okay. So we have by now heard about essays. What is an essay? How do we start a essay? What is paragraph? And all these things. We have talked about them briefly. And besides that, we have heard about short essays and what are the qualities of short essays and all these things. But in this lecture, we will briefly talk about from the very first stage that how do we start writing a short essay, how do we completely edit and finally finalize our essay. So let's discuss briefly first what is an essay, then we will move forward to the all phases of writing an essay. So what is an essay? Okay, did you know that word essay is derived from a Latin word sagium, which roughly translates into presenting one's case? Okay, so we know that essay is basically a personal narrative writing in which the writer's own ideas and own opinions are conveyed. So the word also shows us the similar meaning. Okay, it means how we present our own case, our personal opinion about something, about a particular given topic. So essay is a form of writing which is so much subjective, is totally subjective in nature. Okay, so essay is a particular type of writing in which the writer himself or herself gives his or her own ideas. So essays are a short piece of writing representing one's side of argument or one's experiences or stories. So essays basically the writer's side of the argument, what the author wants to say, and then he substantiates what he wants to say with different arguments that are his own opinion and different experiences and stories. In an essay, we can quote and we can take out information from different sources which we would give references about. Okay, but generally it is a form of writing which is generally very subjective to the author or to the writer of the essays, and hence we say essays are very personalized. Okay, they are more subjective in nature. Writing an academic essay, now we're talking about academic essay, that means it will be a formal written piece of writing, and formal writing essay means fashioning a coherent set of ideas into an argument. So basically, when we are writing an academic essay, we would be given a particular topic, all right? And in that topic, we have to present our own ideas in a coherent set of ideas or in a coherent form, all right? So we have talked about coherence earlier. So we know coherence means the ideas, they are built on one another and they are providing a coherent set. That means they go in a logical order and a logical flow, and all these arguments presented in a logical way, they form a one argument over the topic. Okay, for example, there is a topic that I agree with or I disagree with. That would be my particular argument, that why do I favor it and why do I do not. Okay, so an academic writing or academic essay would mean that I am developing a coherent set of ideas and trying to provide or present the side of the argument. Because essays are essentially linear. Okay, they go one way, they offer one idea at one time. Okay, one idea means whatever the topic is given, the idea would be that one, and then there could be offshoots of that. There could be various examples and various arguments to support that one particular idea. They must present their ideas in the order that makes most sense to the reader. Okay, so there is no hard and fast rule that you have to present your ideas in a particular order or in a certain manner, but you have to make sure that you are providing the ideas in a manner that they make sense to the reader. The ideas are not haphazard, rather they are coherent. Okay, they are logically divided and logically set in a particular order. Only then that would make a sense to the reader. All right, now we will discuss various types of essays. Okay, very briefly I will tell you the definition of various types of essays, because that would help us determine what topic of the essay we are writing on. All right, so there are different types of essays which help us decide what would be the order of our essays and how do we design different essays, because all these arguments, they would help us develop according to the type, Okay, it would help us design a coherent or a set of ideas, and then it would tell us that what information we should put in the essay and what things we should avoid in that particular type of essay. So when we are given a particular topic for the essay, we need to decide what is the type of essay that we are gonna build on that topic. So let's discuss the types of essays first, then we would move on to writing and planning an essay. Narrative essay. Tell a story or impact information about your subject in a straightforward, orderly manner like a story. So narrative essays are the type of essays in which we tell a story, okay, or we impart information. That means we give out an information about the subject in a straightforward and orderly manner. All right. So that would mean that we are not decorating it things with not in a haphazard manner or something like that. We are just giving a straightforward point of view and in a clear orderly manner, and we are telling it like a story, and we the author becomes a narrator of that essay about that information about that topic. Okay, so it is a form to or a way to impart information in a logical, in a straightforward manner, and like we tell a story that this happens, then this happens, and then that happened. Similarly, in a narrative essay, in an orderly manner, we impart the information to the reader. Next is descriptive essays. Descriptive essays focus on the details of what is going on. Okay, so descriptive essays generally describe certain things. For example, if you want to write a descriptive essay about your trip to the park, you would give great detail about what you experienced. Okay, so for example, a descriptive essay could be about anything. In a narrative essay, you tell the story that this happened and then that happened in a straightforward manner. But in a descriptive essay, you would describe in detail. You would use too many adjectives, for example, to show to make the reader feel the same experience that you felt. Okay, for example, if you are writing a descriptive essay to describe a particular time or a particular person or an animal or anything, you are trying to describe something, you use a more characteristic of that thing or that person, okay, to show the reader so that they can visualize that particular thing through your description. So the major quality of descriptive essay is that you describe them or describe whatever your topic or the point of focus is in such a detail that the reader who can visualize that thing. Okay, you would give too many great details and descriptions about what your experiences is. For example, how the grass felt beneath your feet. Okay, you would in a narrative essay you would just say we walked on the grass. Okay, so it would be obvious that the grass was beneath your feet. But in a descriptive essay, you would rather tell that the grass was green and it was smooth and how magical it felt to your feet and so on. Okay, so in a descriptive essay you would give further more details and more description of how the feeling was, how the scene was, okay, what the park benches looked like, okay, or anything else that the reader would need to feel as if he or she were there. Okay, so in a descriptive essay you make the reader feel or experience the same experience that you felt. So I hope it is clear. So from the topic, okay, you decide what type of essay it is going to be, and that would help you design or write an essay more effectively. We have argumentative essays. In argumentative essays, we basically take one stand, okay, whether we favor or we oppose the topic. And whatever our stance is or whatever stand we take, we have to present evidence and present certain arguments to support that point. Okay, the point has to be controversial, like some people would agree with that, some people would disagree with that, and we have to take the stance whether we are agreeing or we are disagreeing to that point of view. Then we have compare and contrast essays in which we are given two things, okay, typically two or more things in which we tell or compare them, okay, what are the similarities between two things and what are the differences between two things or subjects or whatever it is. Okay, they should be under one umbrella. That means they should not be totally out of context things. They should somehow relate, and then that's how we can compare them, that these are the similarities between these two things and these are differences between two things. Then we have problem solution essay. As it is evident from the name, in this type of essay, we have a problem which we describe and give us the detail, in which we can talk about the consequences of that problem and how it is creating the hurdle for the people or for a certain population and so on. Okay, and then convince the reader to care about their problem. As we are giving the consequences, it would make the reader think about the greenness of that problem and how it is affecting the population. And then we propose a solution to that problem, and then we are telling the reader that these maybe we are giving one solution or we are giving more solutions, that these could be possible solutions to that problem, and then we need to think about it more, and then we prepare to dismantle the objections over that problem so that we can resolve those problems. So that's it for the types of essays. Now we would be moving on and describing how do we actually plan to write an essay. I know I'm with all of you in this journey that it is very hard to get to sit on writing an essay and then think of what the topic that I have to write and how do I write, and like lots of process involved in planning an essay. But once you're done with the planning phase, then slowly and gradually the process becomes smoother and easier to write. Okay, so we would start from the very beginning, that how do we plan an essay stepwise, so that we can, start planning an essay and then we be able to write an effective essay. So to write an essay, you have to decide what kind of essay you want to write. Okay, then when you have, either there will be two ways. If you're given a topic from an authority that you have written essay on that, or you have a list of topics, you have to choose one topic from that, or you just want to write essay for your sake, then you decide the topic on your own. Okay, so once you have the topic, you decide what kind of essay it's gonna be. Okay, whether it is narrative essay or whether you want to propose problem solution essay or so on. Then you brainstorm about the topic. Okay, for example, I asked you to write something on the COVID-19 situation. All right, so this is the pandemic problem and the lockdown and all the crisis that the world is facing today. So, but I ask you to choose any topic related to this context. I'm just giving you broad context to write an essay on. Then you think that what type of essay you want to write. If you're thinking to write narrative essay, then you would start writing on what happened in this whole pandemic situation. Okay, then you would tell that how the first case was found, and then how slowly the cases increased, and how the world is facing problems and all these things. But if you have to write a descriptive essay, you would talk about things in more detail. For example, you would say, you would describe the people's feelings and how people were suffering, those people who were dying, those families were affected, those who were losing their jobs, and all these things in detail. And then you provide further more description about that. Or if you want to write it from a problem solution perspective. Okay, so you think of, you write of the problem in detail, that this is the disease, or maybe you're writing it from the perspective how it is contagious and spreading. Okay, and how we should stay at our homes and all these things. Or you want to write it from a compare and contrast perspective, then you would compare it with some other pandemics in the past. Okay, or maybe you would compare it with some other curfew in the past or lockdowns in the past. So in that way, your essay could take up any form or any kind that you want to write. That is why I discussed the types of essays before. Now you would be, once you're clear with the types of essays and you have a given context, then you decide what kind of your essay it is gonna be. All right, once you decided with the type or the kind of essay that you want to write, then is the time when you brainstorm about the topic. So these are very initial phases about when you're thinking about writing an essay. For now, we have not even started writing an essay. We're just thinking about that if I have to write an essay on this topic. Okay, so by now I have given you a context. We have decided the kind or the type of essay we are going to write. Then we are brainstorming our topic. By brainstorming, we have talked about it earlier, that how do we brainstorm on a level of paragraph. Similar is the thing that you have to do on the level of an essay. Just take a piece of paper and write down everything that comes in your mind related to that topic. For example, COVID-19. Okay, you write down everything. For example, all the perspectives of the pandemic on the piece of paper. Maybe then you can divide it into different sections. That these problems it is creating, these could be the solutions it is these are the possible solutions. Okay, this is how it is impacting the people, it is how it is impacting the economy, or how it is hard for politics, or lots of other things, and then you can categorize them. I hope it is making some sense. Okay, it is just a general example that I'm giving you. You can think of any other topic that you want to think on, then it would help you decide accordingly. Okay, so brainstorming basically means just to have a storm in your mind and think about all the possible or all the things that come in your mind related to that topic. All the information that you have heard about the topic, seen in the news, read in any articles, if you have any ever experience it in your family or in your friends or someone you know. So all these things you would write on a rough piece of paper to brainstorm about the topic, all the information that you have. All right. After that, you would go on researching the topic. Once you have a rough sketch of all the information that you already have, then you research about the topic. Maybe you read certain essays on the topic. Maybe you read some newspaper articles, maybe a research paper. Okay, maybe you watch a documentary on COVID-19 explained on Netflix or something. Okay, or maybe you watch some movies or some opinions or all these things. From all these things, when you're researching the topic, you collect new information about the topic. You might not have any previous information about the topic. Maybe you just have 4 or 5 ideas about the topic when you brainstorm. But now, when you're researching about the topic, the more articles you read, the more documentaries you watch, the more newspapers you come across. So all these things, they would increase the bulk of information or the knowledge that you have on the topic. So when you're researching the topic, just highlight the important things. Maybe you can write in bullet points that, okay, this is how COVID-19 is impacting economy. This is how it is causing more problems for people and all these things. So maybe on a next piece of paper, you are writing what you are coming across from the research of the topic. Maybe you come across, you find out how many cases are there in Pakistan, how many people have died worldwide. So all these new informations that you come across, you can write on a new piece of paper. So by now you have one piece of paper on which you have brainstormed about the topic, the previous information you had. Then you have researched the topic, and now you have some researched information about the topic. Now is the time when we develop a thesis. All right, so we have in previous lecture we talked about thesis statement, but to summarize, I would say thesis here would mean the overall idea of your essay. So you have decided the topic of your essay, but now is the time that you narrow it down to one thesis statement to say that what would be the summary of the essay. What is the overall message that you want to convey through this message? All right. So for example, all the information you have, you know that everybody has that information. But since we talked about an essay, that it is more of personal in nature, it is more of subjective in nature. So you have to think about what is your own opinion about the situation or about the particular topic that you have developed. So what is your thesis, your own statement, your own opinion about that topic? So based on all the brainstormed information and all the researched information, you develop your thesis. By developing your thesis, you mean in 1 or 2 sentences, you write down that what is your opinion about the topic that you want to talk about. All right. So once you have all the information, you read all the information, all the research information, all the information. Then you see that you think that this is the problem basically, or it's your opinion that what is the overall problem, what is the biggest problem maybe, or you come up with certain solution. Maybe you think that this should have been done, or this should be done, or something like that. So this is how you develop a thesis. So here we have to be careful of all the things that we discussed in the previous lecture when we were talking about developing a thesis statement. Then you see that your thesis statement should be arguable, that you can argue upon. It should be justifiable. Okay, some people might disagree or they may agree with your thesis statement. So you have to be careful of all these things then when you are developing your thesis. Next is outlining your essay. So once you're done with your thesis statement, then is the time that you develop your thesis, your outline for your essay. So based on all the information or all the sub points that you have developed on your rough paper of information, based on that, you develop the outline of your essay. In outline, you would decide that these are the things you want to include in your topic according to the kind of essay you have chosen, according to the information you have developed. Okay, all the your outline would have the arguments that would support your thesis. Okay, like by now you have too much information on the paper, but you have to choose only the information that would support your thesis statement. Maybe from your thesis you want to talk about one aspect of the COVID-19. Okay, so you have to choose the information that would support that aspect of your writing or your thesis statement. Based on the basis of that information, you develop an outline. By outline, maybe you have written here thesis statement, and by your outline you say argument number 1, argument number 2, argument number 3, and so on. Okay, like that. So all these 3-4 arguments that you should support your thesis statement here. So when developing an outline, you need to develop certain arguments that basically support your thesis. By thesis, we mean your basic argument of the essay, your basic point of view about the overall essay. Okay, so in bullet points, you develop your arguments here, but in your outline. Then when you write your essay, you expand upon those arguments that you have developed in your outline. So these are main steps that you have to follow. Okay, research the topic, collect some information about the topic, then develop an argument that this is your point of view about the essay. Think of certain ideas to prove that argument. Okay, prove your thesis, then try to expand upon those ideas or those arguments. And then you have already, before you know, you have already written your essay. All right, so in the end, when you've written your essay, you just need to check your essay for spelling, grammars, and whether it is following a particular pattern or not, all these things. So that's it. This is all we have to do to write an essay. Okay, still we have a long way to go, but this is just to summarize that how do we write an essay. Okay, so we talked about brainstorming, that you cannot write an essay unless you have idea about what you're writing. So some previous information that we were talking about, write down everything that comes in your mind, narrow it down, and then it would help us. Then researching the topic. Okay, find out different sources that would help us to cite those sources when we're writing an essay. We have already talked about referencing in our essay. So when we are researching, we also have to keep in mind that these are the sources that we would be using, or we also need to mention in the site or the reference for the information that we are choosing. Developing a thesis, we talked about this in detail. What is your main point of the essay? Okay, what is the basic premise to write your entire essay, remembering all the different points. Your thesis statement should be broad enough that you have enough to say about it. Like I told you, when you're developing a thesis statement, then you will develop further more ideas about that one when you're outlining your essay. So it should be broad enough. Okay, you have to be careful that you're developing a thesis statement which could be justifiable and which you have certain ideas and you can expand it a little bit. But it should not be so broad that you cannot write enough about that. Okay, so it should be mediate or moderately broad so that you expand upon it and you can give 4-5 arguments, and then you're writing a short essay here. Then we have outlining our essay. Okay, how logically we are developing our arguments and we are building upon one argument and other. Okay, this outline would help us developing the skeleton of the paper, skeleton of the overall essay. Okay, so we have thesis statement, then we develop 4 5 few arguments, and then that would decide the outline of the essay or the skeleton or the basic framework of our essay and how logically we are going to provide our information. Okay, so outline of the essay helps us to design a well organized essay and in which information flows in a proper manner. All right, so if we're writing just on and we keep on writing, then we might lose the track. We are not, our information is not as organized as it should be. So outlining the essay is very important to develop a logical and well organized essay. Now we're on the stage, then how do we actually write an essay? Once we have developed the thesis, once we have come up with the outline, now is the time that we actually write an essay. Okay, so these are the this is the basic framework or the structure of an essay that we need to keep in our mind before writing an essay. That is, all essays consist of these three basic parts. One is introduction. So your essay should have an introductory paragraph in which it is talking briefly introducing the topic, and it is giving us the highlights of your coming essay, your stand, what is your point of view, and it should introduce the overall idea about your essay. Okay, we have already talked about in class about introductory essays and how introduction ends with a thesis statement. Okay, in the previous lecture when I talked about thesis statement, I told you that introduction should ideally be ending with a thesis statement so that the next paragraphs they help us understand. Thesis statement helps understand the next paragraphs. So the first part of an essay should be an introduction that ideally ends with a thesis statement. Then we have a body paragraph or body paragraphs that support that thesis. So when the thesis is presented in the introduction, okay, then we have few body paragraphs that would be supporting the thesis. Okay, in our outline, we talked about different arguments that would support the thesis statement. Now, on each argument, we would develop one body paragraph. For example, in a short essay, we have three arguments to support our thesis statement. So when we are writing an essay, there is an introduction which ends with a thesis. Then we have three body paragraphs on each body paragraph supporting one argument and telling in more in detail about that. And after those three arguments, we have a concluding paragraph. Okay, concluding paragraph basically summarizes the overall idea about the overall essay that we have already talked in detail about. Okay, it should not be providing any new information, but it would just summarize the overall idea. So introduction, as a rule of thumb, the introduction should go from broad to specific, sentence by sentence, gradually leading up to your thesis. So you begin your introduction with a very general statement, and then you move on to be very specific, and your thesis is very specific and to the point about what is your stance on the topic. Okay, you begin your introduction with a hook topic sentence and end it with a thesis. So we have talked about the topic sentence or the basic first introductory sentence of the introduction. It should be a hook. Hook means something that keeps your reader engaging or engaged into the topic and they want to read more about it. Because oftentimes, if we do not like the first sentence of the essay, we skip it out. But when we are attracted towards the first line, then we go on and keep on reading. Okay, so your first sentence should be a hook. Okay, there could be lots of ways to developing a hook. It could be lots of things. For example, okay, here it can be an interesting anecdote, it can be a quote, it can be a joke, or it can be statistics. But statistics sometimes may be boring. Okay, but sometimes we can present them in such a way that they are so much captivating to the reader. Okay, so or we are writing some famous anecdote, we are starting with a quote. Okay, but it may vary because certain very cliche quote that everyone might have heard already, or some very common statistics that already everyone has heard, so there would be nothing interesting about those and there would no more be a hook. Okay, by hook we mean that we have to keep the reader stick to our essay. So we have so it encourages them to learn more about the topic and read more about it. So we see that when you're developing a hook topic sentence, it can be anything, but it should be interesting. Okay, so it could be more personal in nature, as essay is very personal, so you can choose anything from that, or maybe you can just write a simple plain sentence statement, but it should be your own, and it should be catchy enough that it keeps the reader engaged, and it is providing a certain slight new information in a subtle way that it keeps the reader engaging. Okay, so this is how what you have to do with lots of practice, and then you would be able to develop ideal hooks. Okay, you can Google down lots of how to develop a hook if you are still confused about it, or you can, search for different examples for a hook, and that would give you a fair idea what a good hook is and what are not. Or simply what you can do is open out few articles on internet, and then you see, read the first line of all the articles, and you see what articles you want to read more. If you think that, if after reading the first line, if you think that you want to go on and read more about it, then definitely it's a sign that there is a good hook. But after the first line, if you want to just close the tab and you just move on to next article, that would probably mean that just not a good hook. Okay, so then like this you can decide what a good hook for you is, and then it might vary from topic to topic and the type of essay you are choosing. So these all things would depend and then help you develop a good hook. Then we say that in introduction we have a topic sentence, okay, and which is broad, and then we are moving to specific, in which we are talking about different things, and then we end the introductory paragraph with a thesis statement. Okay, so let's see writing a thesis statement. For this, you can refer back to the lecture where we talked about a thesis statement developing in our essay. Okay, then you have to keep in mind all those things, and then you write down your thesis, how you can summarize your whole essay. You just have to keep in mind that your thesis statement summarizes the overall idea into one or two sentences at the max, and then it should be coming at the end of your introductory paragraph. Then we are moving to writing body paragraphs. Okay, we'll continue with the body paragraph. Remember, body paragraphs should support the thesis. So we have talked about when we are developing body paragraphs in an outline, we should have arguments which are supporting the thesis statement, because thesis statement is the overall idea for an essay, and now our body paragraphs, they should be supporting the thesis statement. Think of each body paragraph as one argument that supports the thesis statement. So more arguments you have, more body paragraphs you have to develop. And in that, you do not have to just write down an argument. You have to develop a whole paragraph, the way we have talked about paragraph building in detail. Okay, so then your argument should be the topic sentence or the thesis. That argument is the thesis of that paragraph. Okay, and then all the supporting details and how you're introducing that argument and how you're proving that argument, the way we develop a one paragraph. So all those ideas would come here, and each body paragraph would be developed on the similar way we develop any ideal paragraph. Okay, so each paragraph should have its topic sentence, its argument, its justification and details, and its own thesis. So that would be the thesis of that particular argument. We have one general thesis of the whole essay that comes at the end of the introductory paragraph. Okay, that particular argument of that body paragraph supporting that thesis. But it should have its own thesis, which is summarizing the idea of that body paragraph or that particular argument. Then we summarize our essay with the conclusion. The final paragraph of the essay is called the conclusion. Okay, you can begin that paragraph by writing to summarize, and then you go on, or you can say that as evident by argument, argument, argument. Okay, like you would say that as these arguments show, then you give a concluding remark that these arguments prove that this was my thesis, and then you re-emphasize your thesis point. Okay, use the conclusion paragraph to sum up the main point of your essay using different words. So again, in your thesis conclusion, you are emphasizing or re-emphasizing your thesis or your main idea, main point, but you're using different words. And now you are showing that this is the final remark or this is the concluding remark. Okay, so the thesis statement is more of opening in general, and the last concluding paragraph is closing in nature. Okay, because once you're giving a thesis statement, then you talk about the arguments that support the thesis statement and then talk about more the thesis statement. But in conclusion, you are closing your essay, okay, and then you are re-emphasizing your point that this is the main idea. So it should be closing in nature. The last sentence can be something broad that leaves the reader wondering that, and they keep on thinking about your essay for a while. Then once we planned our essay, we wrote our essay. Now is the time we finally give it a final check and edit it a little bit if it needs. We have to revise our essay. Maybe we just read the essay and find if there is clarity in the essay, if the arguments are put in a logical order and there is a consistency in the essay, and then we check for the structure. Okay, whether there's any ambiguous structure or is it clear to understand, or if there's logical flow of arguments and all these things. And wherever we think that there is any inconsistency, then we have to edit that thing. So once we have ended up writing an essay, we now read our essay as a third person reader, okay, and then check it for all these things. You have to support your thesis adequately with the information in your paragraphs. You have to check whether your body paragraphs are supporting your thesis or not. If not, then you just have to skip out that paragraph and develop a new paragraph, or if the length is sufficient, then we can just skip out the paragraph and see that the paragraphs, all the paragraphs, they should be supporting the thesis statement. Or if you think if all the your body paragraphs are giving us a completely different idea, and then that is the idea that you now favor more, then you can mold your thesis statement accordingly as well. Okay, but at the end, you need to remember that your thesis statement and your body paragraphs are in inconsistency. Okay, so all your body paragraphs should at the end be supporting your thesis statement. Make sure everything flows together. When you are editing your essay, you need to make sure that there is a logical flow of argument. Okay, and one argument is based on the other, and then you can make sure that by using transition words, okay, that connect the ideas together. For example, you can write however, nevertheless, similarly, okay, and all these transition words and adverbs that we use. Okay, you need to make sure that you're using them to give a transition in your essay and how one idea is built upon another idea. And then this is how you can make sure that your ideas are flowing in a consistent manner. Okay, when you're editing your essay, you can see if there is any inconsistency, or you think that these 2 points are not in a logical flow, or there is something missing, then you can just put a transition word, a suitable transition word there, so that you can develop more consistency and flow in your essay. Okay, maybe you can use a transition word to glue that connects every paragraph together. Okay, after one paragraph, you can start a new paragraph with writing similarly, or you can develop different paragraphs with maybe firstly, then your first argument, then second paragraph with secondly, then the second argument, and so on. Okay, this could be one example. You can use different transition words to support or develop consistency in your writing. Okay, at the end, reread your introduction and conclusion and see whether they are of the same opinion or they are giving us the same idea. It should not be like your introduction is saying something and your conclusion is saying something entirely different. So you have to make sure that introduction and conclusion, they both are in one flow and they both are ultimately giving the same idea. Okay, will the reader walk away knowing exactly what the paper was about? Okay, so when you're writing an introduction or conclusion, they should be like a short summary of the overall essay, so that if someone has to skim through that, so that if they're reading only introduction and only conclusion, they should have a fair idea that what it was about. Okay, so that was it about editing your essay. And then once you're you have edited your essay, then you will have your final draft. You may reread it as many times until you find that final consistency and final draft that you are satisfied with. Okay, so it's a long procedure writing an essay. If you have any questions at any stage of writing an essay, you can write in the comment, or if you have any comment or any confusion from this lecture, you can again write in the comment, or you can keep note down that for our live session, and then there we will discuss them in detail. Thank you so much for watching this. Good luck.